Dan, how have you been?
Jay, been all right. How about you?
It's absolutely wonderful. I see we color coordinated.
I
Glad you
know,
got the
right?
glad you got
Yeah,
the memo.
which is good because we're certainly not weather coordinated. You guys are already warm down there, and it's snowing outside here
Oh, good
in late
gravy.
April.
Remind me to tell you about my trip to Utah and the surprise sandstorm that we ran into and then drove up the
Oh boy.
mountain. We were staying in Bryan Head, and then we got up to the top of the mountain, parked the truck, woke up in the morning to a foot of snow on everything.
Oh boy. Yeah, we
Fascinating.
were. We ran down to town for an errand the other day, and it wasn't. It was pretty clear, and we got back up here. There was a foot of snow on the road. An hour and a half later, we had to put the chains on to get up the driveway.
Oh my gosh. Thankfully I didn't need to put the chains on. They had everything plowed by the time I was ready to go somewhere that next day. But yeah,
Mhm.
surprise. That's why I live in San Diego. It doesn't snow down here.
Yeah, but land prices are really high down there.
Yeah, well, just got to time travel back 15, 20 years and buy something, and then you're
Yeah,
fine.
there you go. Yeah, no, I had to come out to the middle of nowhere so I get my own private forest. But
Uh, That happens
snow,
too.
snow's the
So
price you pay.
this is true. Hey, speaking of
Hey,
speaking of time travel,
I know, right?
transporting to different worlds, whether you want to or not, drive across Utah, you're in a different world.
That's a hell of a segue, man. You should be a podcaster or something.
I should be a segueist. I should write segues for other people. Was thinking about Stephen R. Donaldson recently,
Oh God,
and
what an author!
uh, I picked the reason I started thinking about him. I don't have the physical version because I bought the ebooks, but the Thomas Covenant, the last Chronicles of
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Covenant, which I never thought were
Yep.
coming. I don't know
Neither
why,
did
but I
he.
thought everything was wrapped up. I thought he was done. Silly me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for those that don't know, did you want to touch on Stephen R. Donaldson real
Oh
fast?
God, yes. Oh, Stephen R. Donaldson. Between Donaldson and Tolkien, I was completely ruined for fantasy. After I finished reading through Donaldson, there's just no one else that. Every time I've tried, I've been like, eh. Donaldson or Tolkien did it better. Eh. Um, Donaldson. Should I go biographical or should I talk about the books first?
Let's touch on the books and then we'll touch on the character.
The Donaldson hit the scene in the early 80s with a book called Lord Foul's Bane, which was part one of what had been a 2,500 page single volume book that got split up into 6 books called The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever and The Second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever. It's about an author who contracts leprosy, and his wife freaks out and leaves him, and in as a result of these two things, he descends into the kind of self pity that makes you feel complete contempt for him because he's so self pitying. He respects himself so little that he decides that he's not the kind of man who is courageous enough for suicide. Because if he was, then he must have dignity. So he just sits around wallowing in self pity until he has an accident and is knocked unconscious. I believe he's splitting firewood and falls down and hits his head on the stump or something. And he wakes up in this marvelous fantasy land where, because he has half a hand because he's lost 2 fingers to leprosy, and he has a white gold wedding band, which he has never been able to bring himself to take off because it would be admitting finally that he's alone. He's told that he's the reincarnation of Beric Halfhand, a great hero that had once saved not just this fantasy world but Thomas Covenant's own world by defending it against a demonic being called Lord Foul, who's been imprisoned. He's Satan, and he's been imprisoned in the world. And if he can break the arch of time, he can get out and kill God and destroy both universes. And Thomas Covenant is not impressed by this and says, I don't believe this. I think I'm unconscious and this is a dream and I'm not playing.
And he does
And
things as if he just does not care in that
yeah,
dream.
well, yeah, exactly. And Well, it's worse than that, because they then say, we don't, it's okay, you don't have to do it. Destiny is something you have to opt into, but you're a guest and we will treat you as an honored guest and as a decent person. And this so threatens his self-image that in order to preserve the image he has formed of himself as a monster, he rapes someone who is a friend of his. And then at that point, realizing what he does, he embarks on at that point he goes from being sorry for himself to hating himself.
Wasn't it the
And hate,
daughter of the friend? And
yeah, it
then
was the daughter of the
and it was
friend, yeah.
the and the mother still feels
Hmm.
compelled because she needs to take him on this mission,
Yep.
and she is able to put what he did aside. She doesn't forgive
Hmm.
him throughout the
Yep.
entire book. She does never forgive him,
Nope.
but she says, I need to set you on your path.
Hmm.
And they
They
have a
make it
very
there.
adversarial relationship.
Yeah, and yeah, she basically makes it her business, because as a result of the self-hatred, he realizes, or he decides that he needs to earn his own respect. And the mother, seeing this in him, decides that it is his punishment, that he must be forced to stay on this heroic journey whether he wants to or not, now that he's committed to it.
Because he has
And
no
so,
idea how to leave.
because he has no idea where to go, he has no idea how to be a person anymore, not even a decent person. He has no idea how to be a person anymore. And so over the next 6 books, tortuously, slowly, by strange half steps, this weird fever dream that breaks every so often, and he goes back to the real world between books here and there.
And almost no time has passed.
And almost no time has passed, culminates with him earning his own redemption.
Yep.
And in earning his own redemption, he winds up saving both worlds.
And I forget exactly how the time worked, but I want to say that a single day in our world was 1,000 years in the
Yeah,
other
I believe
world.
it was. Yeah,
Because
it would have had to be, given the. I don't remember it exactly, but it sounds right, and that would have had to be, considering the mythological material Stephen Donaldson was drawing from.
yep, it was either a day or a week that he, between the first and second book, he was back home for a very short period of time.
Hmm.
And he went back and 1,000 years had passed.
Yep.
Generations had gone by, but they still had the myth of Barrack Halfhand, who showed up and was coming again.
Yep.
And not that we're going to throw any Jesus references out there, but he was the second coming of Barrack
Hmm.
Halfhand,
Yes, he
come
was.
to stop the great evil from taking over their world. And
Hmm.
as you said, breaking the bond between the worlds and destroying both. Um, there's so many images I remember, and I remember him coming to terms with the fact that he actually could control the magic in the ring, even if he
Hmm.
didn't believe in it.
Yep.
And I found that absolutely fascinating, that it took him so long to struggle with it, and he lost so many people along the way.
Hmm.
Um, I think one of the funnest parts of the books that I remember was his giant friends. And
Oh yes, Salt Heart Foam Follower, the
yes,
giant.
yes, where the giants are essentially immune to fire
Hmm.
and pain from fire. And I remember Saltheart, he's like, I need to get this out of me, and he holds his hands over the flame. And obviously Tom's Covenant
Hmm.
freaks out, because he's like,
Yep.
all he's thinking is anything I touch, anything I do, because he's lived his life, as you said, he can't commit to suicide, but he also is extremely regimented in his life.
Yeah,
He
he has
walks,
to be, in order to, because he's got no nerve endings in his hands or his
his
feet.
hands and his
So
feet are completely numb, so he takes very slow steps, and he's very cautious. Did
hmm.
I catch my hand on that piece of glass? Did I touch that doorknob wrong? Did I not
Yep.
feel a burr? Because anything could cause him to lose more of his fingers, and that's one of the things where he's doesn't wear gloves a lot of the time also, if I remember.
Back in the real world, yeah,
Yeah, in
he
the real
doesn't.
world, he
He
wore
doesn't
gloves and
in the.
very heavy
Yep.
shoes, because he
Hmm.
didn't want any damage to his hands and his feet.
Yep.
And when he's in the other world, he's wearing robes and he doesn't have the pain. He can feel sensations, which is why he doesn't think it's real. He believes he's
Hmm.
either hallucinating, fever dream, whatnot.
Yep.
And if I recall, I know you said he fell and hit himself, but I believe what happened is he saw a summoning circle,
Yes, off in
and
the woods. Yep.
it was off in the woods, and he's like, "What's going on?" And he starts to go there, and he's like, "Wait,
There was a bum that showed up
yes,
and
yep,
and said something like not all is lost or something like that, and
yes,
it freaked him out.
yep." And I believe he stumbled backwards, going, "Wait, what am I doing? I don't get involved in things like this. I can't get involved." And he falls back, and that's
Hmm.
when he's boom.
Yep.
Now he's in the other world, not knowing how he got there, and he thinks, "Oh, well, I just fell and hit my head. I'm in the hospital in a coma or something. This isn't real. This isn't happening. I'll wake up soon enough. None of this
Mhm.
matters." And I think that's part of the intensity of the books is you
Yes.
hate this guy. This guy is in the first book, even into the second book, he's just a jerk. He doesn't believe what's happening. He doesn't want to help these people in
And
any way, shape, or form.
he's not a villain,
He's,
right? Because a
he's not
good
malicious
villain,
about it. He's not
no,
malicious.
no.
He's just like,
Well, more to the point, a good villain is he's someone you hate but admire a bit too, because like they have drive, they have ambition, they're going for something. This guy is a total limp noodle. He's not villainous, he's contemptible. And you as an author, I as an author, know that if you've got a character that crosses the line and earns the audience contempt, you might lose the audience. It's
you got a
almost
tough hill to climb.
impossible.
Yep.
And one of the things that makes Donaldson so special as an author is that every one of his series, he starts with a character that is completely contemptible, who by the end of the series you admire beyond recognition.
Yep. And I
And
think that's, like I said, it's a hard road to hoe.
oh
And
yeah.
Donaldson does it absolutely fabulously with, you hate Thomas Covenant so much, but all of the characters that are around him
Hmm.
compel you to go, come on, dude. Come on.
Yep.
How can you
They make you root for him. And the other thing is that Thomas Covenant's sort of inner voice is the inner voice that all of us have had at one point or another, especially at low points, like when you're early teenager and you're trying to figure shit out, or when you've been kicked enough times when you're down and you just think, oh, I want to give up. Thomas Covenant starts out as like the embodiment of that very, very dark, weak voice
Yep.
that pops up in all of us at least once in our lives.
This is so awful. How can anything get any better? It's always going to be this terrible. Why bother?
Hmm.
I'm
Yep.
existing solely for the purpose of existing.
Yep.
Um, I really do need to read the Last Chronicles, because
Hmm.
those first six books, like you said, it's here's 2,000 words split up into six books. It's exactly what happened with Tolkien, like you were saying.
Hmm.
Here's 1,500 words. Oh, we're gonna split it into three books.
Yep.
The same kind of deal. How they found breaking points, I don't know, but it's it's so much fun to talk about a character going somewhere else, and I really think that's indicative of that era when he
Hmm.
wrote the book. It's really seemed like that mid 70s time frame, people were grabbing back to some old pulp era books
Hmm.
where you were transported somewhere else, because many authors were doing something very similar, and they're writing pulpy style books. But Donaldson's book, although it's grasping for pulp roots, it's not a pulp book whatsoever.
No, it reads like a scripture, and that's in a good
That's the
way, not
point.
in a boring way. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
It's and the thing is, all of his book series do that. He did a really short fantasy series called Mordant's Need, which is really good. My favorite series of his is a 5-volume science fiction series called The Gap Cycle, which is a forward
Yes.
adaptation of the Ring
Oh, I
Cycle.
completely forgot
And
that he wrote those
in
ones. Oh my
in
God, those
my
ones were
opinion,
insane.
some of the finest, not just science fiction, some of the finest literature in the Western world is those 5 books.
Yes.
It it took me, the first 2 books in that series are so dark, and you know me, I like dark. They are so dark that they're really thin too. They took me 2 years to get through, and I took book 3 on my honeymoon, and book 3 is like that thick. And halfway through book 3, the series hits this fever pitch climax, And so on my honeymoon, I went out to a bookstore and I had to get books 4 and 5, and I read 3, 4, and 5 in the space of 3 days. And I'm dyslexic and I read slow. That's how good those books are.
Yep, yep. But I think that's Donaldson to a T. Very
Mm-hmm.
slow boil, very slow boil. But once he's got you, he's
Oh
got you.
boy, oh yeah, absolutely does.
And the writing is just, it's superb,
Oh, it
superb
is.
writing. I still have visions of Thomas Covenant sitting on the edge of a bowl in a field.
Mm-hmm.
You know exactly where I'm going because you know the
Yes, I
exact
do.
scene. And the woman he's with calls in the spirit. It wasn't the spirits, but all these little dancing lights start to come and dance around the circle and dance
Mm-hmm.
around her. And that's when he starts to get the feeling of, I'm not in
The
Kansas
wild magic.
anymore. Yeah, I'm not in
Yeah.
Kansas anymore. Yeah, the wild magic and how she can control it and make these lights dance and move. And they something,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's when he has the first flash of white gold magic where he scares them
Yep.
all the way and they scatter.
Yep.
And that's when she's like, you have what it takes. You need to see it now. And
Yep.
that's the turning point of the book. And it's so weird that I haven't read that book in probably 25 years or better.
Yep.
And I
So
still,
I have only read that series once. Only once. I started when I was 14. I finished when I was 17. And I still remember so many of the scenes as if I had watched them myself.
oh yeah, like
And and
salt heart going through the
oh sorry,
lava
oh yeah, oh god.
and coming
And when
out
and when
completely stripped of
uh-huh,
air.
and then Covenant just walks into the fire and stands there and gets transfigured, and then at the next morning they go off on the ships. Oh
So
yeah,
so
it's
many. Didn't
and
Saltheart, he sang to make the boat move?
yes, yes he did,
Yes, and it
yes
was
he did.
this, yeah, and Thomas would just, it would lull him to sleep
Hmm.
because the singing was this
Yep.
droning.
And they were the first time since he had gotten leprosy that he did not have terrifying dreams.
Yes.
And yep. But yeah, and when you look at the prose on the page, you wouldn't expect it to have that effect. The
No.
writing style is fairly indirect. It's
Yes.
very high concept. The vocabulary is grad school level or better. It's very, very intellectual in a way that makes you expect that there's nothing emotional there. And yet it is emotionally devastating.
Yes. Yes. The whole series just,
Hmm.
it grips you and you're just waiting for everything to fall apart at any given moment.
Yep.
Um,
And all his fiction is like that. Is he did? Have you read his PI series?
I have not. I read The
It's
Gap and I
really
read The Constant
good.
Covenant.
It's really good.
There's so
The the
many,
ma-
so many works I need to dig into, and
yeah
Donaldson's one of those authors that,
yep.
uh, like I said, I've read the books a couple of times. Now that we're talking about them, and I wanted to talk about this, I want to go back and read those books again.
I
Uh,
know, right?
and I know I'll just
Oh,
burn through them. I know, like you said, I'll just burn through them in a couple of days a book.
have you ever read any of his short fiction?
I have not. I don't believe I've read any of his short fiction.
He's got
But
3 collections. I've read 2 of them. The first one is The Daughter of Regals and Other Tales. The second is Reeve the Just and Other Tales, which is so far my favorite. It has this amazing story in there called The Jinn Who Watches Over the Accursed. It's about a Middle Eastern Arab courtier who gets caught sleeping with the court vizier's woman and is
oops.
is cursed to wander the earth, and everyone he meets will fall in love with him, and everyone who falls in love with him will come to ruin. And he will be protected at all times so that he can't kill himself and no one else can kill him by the jinn who watches over the accursed. And it is such a deliciously perverse story as he learns how to take this terrible curse and make it into a force for good in the world. It is so
Ah,
creepy. It's really good.
So he goes and romances those that need to be corrupted and
Uh-huh.
destroys them
That's right.
through his charms because
Yep,
they have no choice.
that's
Wow.
right.
That's a totally different way to take that one.
Yep.
Well, definitely some short fiction I need to go dig up. Well, Dan, this has been Hat Guys Talk Books
Indeed.
because we still have a hat problem.
Yep.
I will see you next time.
All right. Yeah. Be sure to tell your friends about us, and we'll see you later.
Like and subscribe down in the clicky button area.
Yep. Or
All
whatever's
right.
appropriate for this platform.